Okay, it is time. Welcome, everybody, to season 2. And in case you missed our opening quote, I just love this one. Walk with the dreamers, the believers, the courageous, the cheerful, the planners, the doers, the people with their head in the clouds and their feet on the ground. Let their spirit ignite a fire within you to leave this world better than when you found it. And that certainly describes the doers that are our park professionals. Welcome to season 2 of your show, Good News in Parks. I'm Anne-Marie Spencer, and I co-host each episode with Jody Adams, an amazing rock star and friend with decades of park leadership under her belt. We also want to congratulate Stephen Becker, who won our first Good News in Parks mug giveaway. We'll be reaching out to your mailing address. Woohoo! And to the rest of you, keep registering for upcoming episodes. We'll show you how at the end of the show. And we heard that you love that mug, so thanks for your comments. We'll have more promos and mug winners all season long. If you're a seasoned viewer, thank you for watching and for your ongoing support. If you're new to the show, we're glad to have you here. We have some great guest panelists for you today, as always, and our questions for them come straight from the survey suggestions that you give us. So thank you for your input. And as always, we'll have several opportunities to engage today through the viewer polls and to ask our panelists questions of your own. So as you think of them, please enter them in the chat box. Our panel may respond to you directly in the chat, and if not, we'll try to get to as many as we can at the end of the show. Jody, Happy New Year, my friend. What's the good word and who are our guests today?
Oh, we are so ready for this season 2. Anne-Marie, thank you. And I'm looking forward to this. And today we have a dynamite show. And let's go ahead and introduce our guest panelists. First of all, Chirs Nunes. Chris is director of Woodland Township, Texas, Parks and Recreation Department. Chris is past president of the American Academy of Parks and Recreation Administration. He also serves on numerous committees with NRPA and also the CAPRA Commission. And also we want to recognize Chris with the 2019 Agency Gold Medal Grand Plaque Award recipient, and also the NRPA Distinguished Professional Award recipient. Chris, we are so excited to have you to start off this year. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jody. Looking forward to the panel and got some other great folks on the panel as well.
You bet. Nasha McCray. Nasha, director of City of Greensboro, North Carolina, Parks and Recreation. A 2020 Agency Gold Medal Award Grand Plaque recipient. Yeah, that was pretty neat. I got to be involved with you on that one. Also, she has served on numerous committees of NRPA, American Planning Association, International City Managers Association, National Parks, Recreation, Ethnic Minorities Society. And then finally, just to top your 2020, she was in the inaugural class of Black Business Inc. magazine, 40 under 40 most influential African Americans in the Triad North Carolina region. Congrats and welcome to the show, Nasha.
And Anne-Marie, happy to be here today.
You betcha. We're gonna have fun. Mitch Overton, I am so happy. We finally got you on, Mitch. We were looking at you and we were trying to get you on. This is director of City of Bozeman, Montana, Parks and Recreation. He is the current president of the state of Montana Trails Recreation and Park Association. He's the administrator of he is administering the fastest growing community and parks and recreation within the state of Montana with the Parks and Trails District of Montana. And then finally, you have been past director of Lancaster, Ohio Parks and Recreation. You've been the past park superintendent with the state parks of West Virginia. Oh my gosh, man. Mitch, we're so happy to have you. Welcome to the show.
Honored to be here. Thank you, Jody. And I'm looking forward to it. You've got a great panel and I'm just proud to be associated with them.
Oh, fantastic. And you know, Anne-Marie, we're not gonna, we keep getting asked more and more for this. So let's just talk about good news on the national news end of it. Top trends. Rich Dolish, I want to recognize our retired VP of NRPA Strategic Initiatives. He talked about trends, and we're going to talk about this more in our next show. And Anne-Marie's going to talk about that with some really dynamo guests that we're going to have on our January 28th show on forecasts and trends. But here's what he's mentioned. New technology. We know it's on fire. It has to be on fire. But we have robotic cleaners coming into our systems now. We have self-cleaning toilets like they had in Europe coming into our systems. We've got automated line painting vehicles. We've got mowing machines that are automated now. We've only begun. So what better way is to put it in our parks and recreation nationwide to expose and to test out, and let's be a leader. Visual programs, they're not going to go away. This is another trend. We know that esports is on fire. It's in a surge, but also I want to compliment, and Mitch, we're happy you're on the show, because the Kansas Parks and Recreation, they are going to partner with you all in Montana and your association, state association, and Montanians are going to be able to go to the Kansas State Convention at no cost virtually. Now, that's what we want to keep seeing, is that intentional partnerships between our states. So way to go, Kansas and Montana, way to keep working together. And then we also, I want to recommend a book that's coming out, and Kevin Roth brought this forward. I had seen it about 2 weeks prior to that, and it's called Super Forecasting, the Art and Science of Predictions. I'm telling you, you don't want to miss this book. I've already started, and it is an amazing read. And so again, we're going to address this even in our next episode down at the end of the month. Also, stronger orientation forward and towards health equity, social services in our country. We know that. We've talked about it. You've brought it forward as our audience. But let me tell you, tomorrow, 10 a.m. Central Time, the Quest for Equity in Parks and Recreation. It's going to be brought to you by the Tennessee Department of Environmental and Conservation. Tennessee Recreation Advisory Committee is bringing this forward. You don't want to miss it. Rosalind Johnson, we know Rosalind. She's an alumni of the show. She's the director of Baltimore County Parks and Recreation. You've got James Page with the Natural Conservatory. You've got Autumn Saxon Ross, Vice President of NRPA with the Diversity and Inclusion Officer. And you've also got Latrice Sneed, the Chief Program Officer with National Park Foundation. If you cannot get in on this session, they will have it in webcast, but it's going to be one of the best. And thank you, Tennessee Department of Environmental and Conservation. Finally, I want to say a shout out to Cindy Sullivan. She's retired. She just retired, 38 years in the field. This show's about good news. Well, that's good news, because I'll tell you, Cindy's still on fire. She's going to be working. She has been with the 28 years in the Somerset County Parks and Recreation Commission, and she will continue to contribute with the American Academy of Parks and Recreation Administration, and also the New Jersey Parks and Recreation Association. So shout out, Cindy. Great job. What a stellar career, but we still need you. So we're not going to let you go. And then finally, let me just go ahead and say to you, let's move into today. Today is full. We have a lot to talk about with this panelist. We have wanted these three together, and we got them to start out the year. Question number one, here we go. You are extremely all experienced, cutting edge, sharp directors representing our field. As an experienced director in your leadership role, you plan, problem solve complex issues every day within your department. With that said, two questions. Part one, as your department takes a fresh approach towards 2021, what does that look like, especially since you all have been national leaders and very successful in the past with your departments prior to the pandemic? So we've got three top departments. You've been recognized. But then number two, are you using a phased approach, a magical approach to the way your department's going to program, engage, and communicate with your community and operate? It's a mouthful, it's a lot, but really, you guys, we need to know what your fresh look is going to be for 2021. Chris, I'm going to start out with you. Let's rock.
Well, Jody, thank you very much. And I think that first question can take the entire hour and 15 minutes.
Right.
To be honest with you, there is a lot in there. I think the first part of the question is what does 2021 look like? And to be honest with you, I'm concerned but I'm also optimistic. And I think that's the thought process that we have to take, is always be optimistic. There's no problem. There's only challenges and obstacles to get through. I really think from a 2021 standpoint is we're not going to see quote unquote normalcy back until at least September. We've got to get through and understand where the vaccines are going through, where are we getting them out? Are we getting to that mass level? And then we're having some comfort. I know I've even talked to my staff that the first program cycle that would be normal would be our fall of 2022.
Yeah.
The other thing that I'm very, very cautiously optimistic is while there are a number of people who have been financially impacted by this pandemic, when you look at the national unemployment rate, as of November, I'm not quite sure on December's because I know there was probably maybe a slight tick up. The actual unemployment level was 6.7%. So natural unemployment is about 3 to 4%. So we're only about 2.5%, 3% off of that. Is it still a lot of people? Amen to that. But so I think it's bad, but it's not as bad as that. I always want to find a silver lining in there. So I think we need to be cautiously optimistic. I know that the NRPA, you were talking about trends, and the magazine came out and indicated that about 25% of our agencies will receive severe budget cuts. I think there's going to be some of that. I don't know if it's going to be that large, but also Mitch and I had a conversation off camera about it's going to be depending on a lot if you're sales tax oriented, if you're property tax oriented. So you really have to understand, where your money comes from, whether you're a director or a program coordinator or a foreman. You have to understand the impact of those aspects. In terms of your next part of the approaches that we're going to use, I think the fact that we're seeing communication be really manifested faster and quicker because we were forced into these tools like Zoom. We were forced into these tools like Microsoft Teams, and now it's the habit that's been changed.
Yes.
And that's important. We're looking at it from a standpoint that, we go to the habit aspect, that over these 9 months and potentially as long as 15 months, the individual's habits, recreational habits, have the potential to change. So because they couldn't do group sports or adult flag football or softball or something to that effect, they're now moving to, maybe mountain biking, maybe hiking, maybe camping, maybe tennis, maybe golf, maybe something to that effect. So we have to understand that once this pandemic, and once we get the all clear standpoint, doesn't mean those people are going to go from hiking back to the adult sports, that it's going to be more, the habits have changed. And we have to really think about this, of understanding that our user, our resident, is a consumer of our services. And those habits and those needs, which consumer means needs, those change frequently. And so just to say we're going to have the same program we're having 25 years ago, we can't do that.
That's
the
right.
environment is changing so fast, pandemic or no pandemic. We mentioned that the three of us are in somewhat growth areas. It's constantly changing. But even if you're not in a growth area, you have to understand that the needs, habits, and wants of the individual, which is who we're responsible to, is changing from that standpoint as well. The other kind of thing that I see is more of kind of a park dynamic. I think we're going to see the potential for the development of more outdoor space, not only trail development, but even things like more pavilions or awnings or shade structures and that type of stuff, where people can gather under it outside instead of going to the recreation centers. Indoor room that's 20 by 20, 10 by 15, 100 by 100, whatever, is we start looking at potentially, these fabric structure awnings. So there's more air, because I think there will be this, at least for 5+ years, this, am I comfortable with being around people? Am I comfortable with, getting into large groups? I think there's a large segment of our population who's ready to get back right now. Going to concerts, going to special events, going to sporting events, and trust me, I'm right there. I know I can't. But so those are real things. And the last thing I'll say, again, it goes back to market. that there are probably at least three different types of people in our communities. People who are very, very comfortable going out right now, and we call those the green people. The yellow people we call that are very, very cautious. You know, do I go into that restaurant? And of course, Texas is wide open, so just to let you know my understanding. Do I go out? Do I not go out? My wife and I are kind of these yellow people where we'll go to a restaurant and we'll see, hey, listen, do they have a patio? Yes, they do have a patio. Is anybody on the patio? If nobody's on the patio, we're going out there. We want to be separate. And then there's red people who are still shut in their house for one reason or another, personal, maybe a health reason. And I think we're going to see those types of people move through our system for the next three to 5 years.
You know, Chris, you're right on target. I've been hearing this throughout the country from professionals, and the mindset has changed. We all need to be on top of this because it is going to be interesting. Mary Beth Odell talked about this on one of our shows. She said, remember, will they come back? Well, probably it's going to be adjusted. It's going to be a different type of mindset that people will have. Nasha, let's move to you. And let's talk about Greensboro. What do you see?
Yeah, so I'm a firm believer, and I know my fellow panelists and you all will agree as well out there that are tuning in. I'm of the opinion Parks and Recreation is like the very center and the fabric of our community. And so what I see, especially here in Greensboro, is that we will continue with that mindset. We'll continue to be that premier leader in improving the quality of life in our community. One of the things that we're very, very fortunate to have that makes it really refreshing and unique for Greensboro, we're fortunate to have a city management team that encourages interdepartmental collaboration and collective working. And so Parks and Recreation here in Greensboro is part of a broader community services team. And that consists of other departments that have a like-minded mission and approach to how they provide services. So like your public libraries, your neighborhood development department, human rights, and things like that. And so we work really closely here in offering a one-touch whole community approach to providing services. So we promote arts, quality of life, protect civil rights, all of those things. So because of that and the way that we are structured here, I foresee that continuing in a more strategic and intentional way in 2021. Because with us being so socially distanced and disconnected from each other, as a community, the aftermath of that and of the pandemic still remains to be seen collectively on a broader community scale. So it's going to basically take a lot of us to do that heavy lifting. That approach, we've already been involved, and I know there's probably other agencies that are operating similarly in terms of continuing to provide social support services. So getting outside of our traditional recreation realm, looking at ways that we can continue to partner with our community health organizations and agencies to provide testing support, vaccination support, other supportive social services at our facilities. Greensboro, we are going to also continue to offer holistic programs and offerings that support overall health and wellness, including mental health, continuing to be targeted in how we invest in our community around social equity and racial equity, because we can't forget that is extremely important and a high priority in our country. Right. And then also continue to help support our schools and our education community and helping bridge that educational gap that we are experiencing as a result of COVID with schools closing and things like that. So I think, again, those are some things that I forecast and envision, for 2021 to be the focus. I know for us, even here in Greensboro, even continuing to elevate our brand. And so as Chris mentioned, as we talked offline, and then he touched on it a little bit, we as recreators, we're not the only option in our community. And so we need to embrace that, but we need to do a better job of telling our story. We do an excellent job of being subject matter experts and getting out there and getting the work done. But do we put the spotlight enough on ourselves to make sure that folks know that we are recreators and we're doing this and we have a presence here? I think we can improve how we tell our story. So those are some things that I think that we will be focusing here on in Greensboro, elevating that brand and telling our story. We are going to be doing some really exciting infrastructure investments and breaking ground on some projects. As far as construction, that has not slowed here. And we've been blessed and very fortunate to continue to be able to offer different types of amenities and do some exciting projects. And so we'll continue to do that and embrace innovation. But most importantly, our partnerships. I think that's something that, you know, is really key to our success here in Greensboro, is continuing to strengthen those relationships with those partners that can help further support our programs and facilities. You know, with as far as sales tax and revenues and, you know, kind of cost recovery. I know we may get to that at some point, because that's another big thing that we need to talk through. The financial implications of COVID is being really creative and developing partnerships that can further that. So for us, it's still a little bit of a magic approach. You know, we have acquired a ton of wisdom from what I like to call the 2020 experience. May it rest in peace. But our plan is to use science to our advantage, use that wisdom of our experiences last year to our advantage, and eventually sort of phase that operation back in, and look at like our local % positive cases and use that along with guidelines from CDC and our health departments and other peer agencies to develop those operational plans in the future. So I don't see us moving away from our virtual presence, from virtual programmatic offerings. I think one of the advantages is we've been able to actually expand our reach. So beyond just our typical consumers and users that use our facilities now being able to broaden that to people who didn't even know you exist is a huge advantage of this. And so, and in terms of being engaged with the community, you know, making sure your brand stays front of mind, you know, making sure your department brand is still out there for the community to see, so they don't forget that you're there.
Well, you know, Nasha, you touch on this branding and basically communication and marketing and everything. I'll tell you what, you've got a community, and obviously you're a top brand, no pun intended, top brand department. But I will just tell you right now, what I'm excited about, it is time for you to tell your story even more. I look through all your information, you're getting better all the time, but I tell you, you have such a solid foundation of a department. It is amazing. Get that story out there. We need to hear more about you. If you haven't visited Greensboro, please do, just like all these departments that are on here. It's amazing what they're doing. Mitch, let's hear from you, because you cannot stop this growth. You are going crazy in Montana.
Right. It's true. Like Nasha said, we're very fortunate and we'll take it. It comes with problems, but I'll take this problem and work with that. Now, I want to try to piece together this question about the fresh look. I like that, and I think you're right. This has been our duty, our opportunity to work with our folks and say, hey, what do we need to do to stay relevant? How are we going to help our community right now? Now, look backwards just a little bit. We had to pivot early in the pandemic and get away from our traditional programming and say, what do our communities need? Well, difference in our different communities. What did we need? We needed childcare, right? We needed to pivot from our typical programming and say, hey, we're going to do what we do really well, and those are camp models. And we're going to provide childcare for folks on an all day, but really structured and with depth to them, like our programs have, right? So that has now, and then on the parks end, it has made our parks so relevant. Parks and trails are now really recognized as the critical infrastructure that they always have been. And we have seen, and I think all of us here and everybody in the country, a new demographic of folks. Chris alluded to this before, and they're using our facilities, and I don't think they're going away. And so that exposure has been phenomenal. Now, to go back through sort of your fresh look questions on some of these changes and what we're doing going forward. Let's take recreation real quick, for example. So currently coming up, what we're working on is taking our programming to the individuals and not having them come to us. Now, we went through the initial pandemic, a lot of online programming and reaching out and working that way. We'll be keeping that, particularly as it comes to communication and marketing. But right now, with a lot of our kids out of school, learning remotely, in schools on blended models, they're in 2 days, they're out 3 days. We're actually trying to reduce some of that screen time. So what we're focusing on right now are programs that aren't heavy on the screens. So a couple of them we're doing right now. There's just some ideas for your viewers. And some of these we get, right, we borrow from other communities as well, right? We'll, let me see, I've got a couple of notes here on some of these for you. I wanted to make sure. We started this week doing a rec mobile, right? We started that last night, where we take recreation out to 3 different parks, 3 evenings a week after school. And of course, we use online social media to promote these things heavily, but they're free of charge. Right now, we're subsidizing them, but they're prime for grant opportunities. And we take it out to the viewers and to the constituents. And then we're doing a rec to go, right? You can pick it up. We're trying to figure out how we can deliver them as well, but it's what I like to call the rec in a box. But the smarter staff calls it rec to go. It's much better for marketing, and people can pick it up. Things along those lines. And we add in interesting pieces into parks that people can come and see and look at, and then integrate that into some of the programming. Now we've got to phase in. We are phasing in more. We've got to eliminate some of these group sports, right? Spring t-ball is not going to happen this year with the little tiny kids. They're too close and we can't keep them separated. We will focus more on those offerings that can also double as childcare. But again, they have a lot of depth and education to them. Now, when we get into planning and development, we've got to look, and we're looking at some changes in the fresh looks, Jody. We got to look at things with our contractors of how do we engage the public differently than what we used to. This is critically important, so we need to work on that. When we look at designing a new recreation and aquatic center, what has changed? And we're working on that right now. And we'll just forecast a little bit, but let's think about things like wider tracks for more space for walking, upgraded ventilation systems, touchless fixtures, really just enough space for people to feel comfortable. And then finally, you talked about operating differently. Some of these things they're great to carry forward. Electronic signatures, awesome. That has been phenomenal. Obviously, remote meetings. At the end of the day, Nasha had touched on this, but I think what we're trying to do in the big picture, and what we are doing in all of our communities, is working to build trust in the community that our programs and our facilities take every precaution, or are going to. This is that fresh look. And our participants can feel comfortable in our high standards that we've set for health and safety. So that's kind of our fresh look, Jody, and where we're going.
Well, you know what's great? Think about every one of you talked about it. And it is a set of endurance, sustainability, and we are there. Parks and Recreation's not going anywhere. We're going to be there for you, and you can count on us. It's so obvious in your answers and responses. Again, everyone out there, we do not censor the panelists at all. We don't even know their answers. What's great is keep asking questions, and on your evaluations, we encourage you, keep putting these topics. These are all your topics. Let's move to question number 2. Number 2, over the years, your department has seen significant increase in trail development. We're so happy to have the 3 of you on this one. Your experience, various trails, design, construction, funding methods, communication tools with your trail users, because you all are online with your trail user mobility and apps and how you're working through things. Talk about your design, construction, funding approach with your various type of trails. But number 2, with communication tools, talk about those communication tools, because what's exciting, I'd say even 3 to 4 years ago, they weren't there. They were not as advanced as they are today. We need to hear from you all who are definitely more educated and more advanced in this area than a lot of the country. Nasha, your turn. Let's lead off.
Right. So here in Greensboro, we have been in the trail and greenway business since about the 70s. And so we have a dedicated trail section within the department that focuses on the construction and the repair and maintenance of almost 100 miles of trails that we have here in Greensboro within our system. We have a wide variety of opportunities. So we have hiking trails, biking trails, multiple use trails. We even incorporate sidewalk connectors. We have paved and natural surfaces. So year round, at any point, you can come and take a leisurely stroll on one of our paved greenways downtown. You can hike through woods along the shores of one of our lakes, or you can go biking on what I believe to be one of the best urban mountain biking trails in the country, even though we don't have mountains in Greensboro. But it feels that way.
That's right.
But in Greensboro, our approach to design and construction, we use a different number of different guidelines. We have a bicycle and pedestrian master plan that we follow, as well as the North Carolina Complete Streets Planning and Design Guidelines. Of course, we take accessibility into consideration as well. And we get a lot of engagement input from a number of stakeholders, including we have a great partnership with Action Greensboro and Downtown Greenway, a Piedmont Land Conservancy group, our adjacent municipalities that are around Greensboro. And then internally, we have a huge amount of expertise in the department. We have a dedicated trails planner and our trails crew that do extraordinary job. Our Department of Transportation, we work really closely with the planning department, our local MPO. And then we have a really, really strong partnership with the Piedmont Fat Tire Society, which is one of our local biking groups. The trail construction piece, historically, we've been able to accomplish that in Greensboro with a mixture of volunteer work and volunteer labor blended with our staff. And to be honest, the volunteer assistance that we do get from our local clubs, it has been really crucial for us. It's been an extremely important resource for us because they've contributed to our ability to build and maintain what we have in place. So from a funding perspective, we use a combination of different things. Our City of Greensboro, we have bonds through the Department of Transportation and our Parks and Rec Department. Federal transportation funds, we work really closely, like I said, with our MPO to apply for. We've received a number of state trails grants through the Parks and Recreation Trust Fund, the Adopt a Trail grant, which that was eliminated about 7 or 8 years ago. And then the Recreation Trails Program grant that we get through the North Carolina Department of Environmental and Natural Resources. But we also have, private foundations that believe in our mission. We work with individuals that are willing to donate, and even when we were talking previously about construction, a lot of the private developers and businesses, they have now really started to embrace and recognize more the importance of having this non-motorized transportation opportunity and how important that is for attracting and retaining a young, active, healthy customer base and a workforce. So that has been a benefit for us to be able to develop those type of partnerships to expand and to continue to build and enhance our trail experience. But as I mentioned, we have a lot of different trail and greenway opportunities. The way that we communicate with our users and with the public about what we provide, we have online interactive trail maps that we have on our website. We also publish trail guides, and we provide those trail guides to residents, to businesses, our Convention and Visitors Bureau, for example. We also have a dedicated trails and greenway section on our department website. And so that also includes a page where you can actually get links to different organizations, including the sponsors that use our extensive trail system for different activities. We have really pushed and embraced using social media and hashtag GSO Trails. That has been one of the bigger methods of communication that we use, particularly when we have events or closures or we need to get information out quickly to our users. But the most exciting communication tool that we have launched about a year ago is the Piedmont Discovery app. And
yes.
Here's my shameless plug and my commercial. You can download it for free in the Apple or the Google Play Store. But it is a really unique collaboration between the City of Greensboro, the City of High Point, and Guilford County that allows you to search for any type of recreation amenity in each of our 3 entities. You can search by location, amenity, activity type, because including trails, because much like in other communities, if you're out on a trail, for example, you may not realize when you've crossed over into a different municipality, or if you're new to the area, you may not even know what trails or greenways or recreation opportunities exist. So this app allows you, with regards to trails, you can actually search by where's the nearest trail. You can look at, look for different trails that have different levels of difficulty or trail terrain type. So those are just a few ways that we have made a really intentional effort of being able to communicate and kind of stretching the boundary of how we can use technology to communicate with our trail users.
Do you pick it up, folks? She has a dynamic planning background. I'm telling you, Nasha has been there since day. She's the leader of this area in this region. I mean, if you look at her background, she has been a part of this and this jump into this modern technology and everything you're doing. Great job, Nasha. That's why we wanted you to start with this one. Everybody's got a great system on this this show, but we want to start with you because you've been integrated from the trail system for the last few years. You've just set it apart. Way to go.
Nasha, real quick, we have an audience question. What was the name of your app? Another chance to shamelessly plug it.
Yes.
Piedmont Discovery app. And you can find it in the Apple Store and Google Play Store.
Oh, that is fantastic. I saw that and I'm like, wow. Mitch, come on and tell us about your area, because I know you're pretty dynamic.
So we're a little better than 66 miles of trail or multi-use path right now in the community. Listen, trails are just hot, man. They are huge. It is
no kidding.
So important to folks. The priority that needs to be put on trails and multi-use paths right now is evident, and we really need to respond to the consumers here. This is not just recreation anymore. These are alternative modes of transportation. And Nasha, you hit on that. Okay, this is serious business. So from ours, you asked about design specifications. For us individually, we utilize a classification system. We have a class of a 1 through 5, and I won't get into all of those, but they range anywhere from a 3-foot wide tread width of aggregate material to a 12-foot wide impervious surface for a multi-use, separated multi-use path. Now we look at these similar to your traditional street grid transportation system. We think of them like locals, collectors, and arterials. Okay, this is our system. Okay, it is an entire system, a network of trails. So we look at the city as a whole, and we try to connect points of interest, points into the county, and a continuous system. Now, we utilize a trails planning map that identifies future multi-use paths, trails, and bike lanes. And so when new development occurs, we require those adopted connections to be developed, installed by the developers. Now, funding. You asked about funding, right? Obviously, right, you have internal funding. You utilize your capital improvement programs. We did a Parks and Trails bond back in 2012 to address some of this development and some of these needs. And we've done a few multi-use paths with that bond. We utilize grants regularly. One of our latest successful examples of a grant, we utilized the Federal Lands Access Program, what they call the FLAP grant, and constructed a 2.5-mile separated multi-use path with underpass that connects our flagship park to a trailhead out in the National Forest. Obviously, it goes outside of the city, but we've accepted all maintenance responsibilities for the path. And utilizing grants like that, that's a 13.42% match. That's a $4 million project that the city's got $600,000 into. So it's those kinds of funding opportunities you've got to look at. And then again, what Nasha alluded to, what's critical for us is partnerships. This is how we leverage funds for trails and pathways. And it's been significant for us to have partners here. And again, they see the value that these things bring. So those are going to be unique in different communities, but you've got them. Find them, and there's philanthropic arms that people want to be associated with that will help with trails and pathways that isn't giving to the city.
Exactly.
Okay, and so right, it's strategy, or okay, it's just the reality of the situation. And then you talk about communication tools. You asked about that, I think, lastly. So again, we also, like Nasha, we utilize an online interactive trail map. Really cool. And again, our main partner with Trails and Paths, we recognize and utilize with that mapping system as well. We utilize signs in social media. We talk, especially about education when it comes to things like dog waste and the effects on the environment. And then right now, if I can try this, it's signage for COVID and social distancing.
Wow.
And staying safe, right? And it's these kinds of things all along your trail system. The trails are so important to our communities, and we need to provide this. It's good for the environment, it's good for people's health, and it's good, frankly, it's good for our economy. So that's kind of what we're doing here, and I hope there's a little bit of something that helps folks here.
Well, there is, Mitch. And again, yours is unique. You're sitting there and putting that trail into that natural forest. So I've been looking through your system on that. That's quite an advancement, and takes a very interesting mindset of knowledge too, to do something like that into a natural forest area, besides standard trails that you might even do in your community. So we have got to go to the township. This Woodland Township, you have got to share, Chris, what has happened, because you are on such a growth trend and you've really had to maneuver and do some dynamic things. It's all yours, Chris.
I don't know how to top the previous two comments. Like, man, you guys are doing some awesome stuff. And so in short, we have a 200-mile pathway system for a community of about 150,000. We are a community of about 44 square miles. And one of our, claims to fame is that every one of our residents is within 10 minutes of a park or pathway. So very, very accessible. To Mitch's point about people are using it not only for fitness and health, but also for transportation, which is phenomenal. We do have another about 25 plus or minus miles of natural surface trails. We have a park that's about 2,000 acres, and that is something that we, over the last 10 years, have been really developing and agonizing. And I kind of wrote in my notes here that, trail building is the easiest, but also sometimes the most frustrating thing that you'll ever do because of the needed things like, bridges and working with the flood control districts and permits and archaeology reports and et cetera, et cetera. That on the surface is like, yeah, we're just going to clear out some dirt where people are going to start walking, and it's easy, chop. But I think the other factor that I want, which after hearing these two speak, I want to go into a different level of discussion. I think we also need to look at how the trails and how do we get people comfortable with the outdoors. There's a certain segment of our population who is, who is from a concrete jungle, and getting them into the outdoors needs some TLC. And so there's a trail that we're working with, speaking of partnerships, with our Harris County partner to build about a 12-mile, 12-foot asphalt walk through our 2,000-acre forested area. And everybody's saying, hey, listen, that's the worst thing in the world. And on the surface, I agree, okay, because I want this place to be wilderness. But then on the next level, as a director of Parks and Recreation who says, I've got to get as many people into this area as possible, I'm like saying, this is the best thing in the world, because it's going to take those people who are maybe uneasy with getting their shoes dirty,
Mhm.
or worried about feral hogs, or worried about alligators, or all the great stuff we have down here in South Texas. I'm okay on the asphalt, and they get comfort level on the asphalt, and they go from point A to point B on the asphalt. Great, great, great. Then all of a sudden, I'm hoping they see one of those trail signs that says, here's a dirt trail. And per Mitch's comment, here's a, an 8-foot trail or a 3-foot single track trail or single tread trail. Hey, what's over there? Now we've moved that person whose maybe only environment is an urban area to an asphalt path to the track. Now they're seeing those birds for the first time. They're seeing nature for the first time.
That's right. That's right.
And people, once I explain that to them, they're like, wow, that makes complete sense. And I'm like, yeah, it does. It's similar to what we do with all our facilities. We tier up the facilities. We have progressions of size of facilities. We don't tell a bunch of 3-year-olds to play a soccer field on a 100 yard by 50 yard field. It's size to them.
That's right. That's right.
Et cetera, et cetera. So I think we need some more approach to that. I mean, trust me, I am fine with being dropped in the woods and without a compass, and I'll figure out where the hell I'm going, But I've also been doing that. I've also been doing that for about 30 years, maybe even longer, 40 years. So those are things. The other thing too, we touched a little bit about is that I want to talk to you about is we have we're working on to closing about 3 kind of trail steward programs where these groups, one of them is Greater Houston Off-Road Bike Association. One is our land conservation group. Another one is our local hiking group, where they will be doing all the light maintenance. So trim backs, we have tremendous forest growth in our areas that the trail can be grown over literally in about a month.
Wow.
We get 60 inches of rain a year. Yeah. And then we do the heavy lifting, but I think we also need to make sure that, one, you have a contract with them, and it's very, very specific on what they do, when they do, quarterly reports, communication, because stewardship can very, very fast transfer to ownership of the trail, which is not something that you want. And we got into this just this week, where one of the groups came to me and says, hey, we're going to put benches all along the trail, this wilderness trail.
Oh. Yes.
You need benches on a wilderness trail. No, you don't. And so I'm fighting them tooth and nail. Say that's not the intent. That's not the purpose of the 3-foot, 4-foot wide trails. I said we've got enough fallen trees in this area that take a chainsaw, zoom, zoom, you're cut up, make the down tree a flat surface. You're there. There is nothing better than having lunch on a fallen tree and sitting and listening to that. So lots of stuff, but I do agree that trails are going to be hot, but also looking at that progressionary experience that people have from first step on a trail to people more like me who, I could be out in the woods for months if I could actually afford to do that.
Well, I tell you, Chris, you bring up a lot of good points. And again, more and more moving into forests, moving into some of these heavily growth areas and stuff. Golly, that's exciting that's happening in our urban and our just areas of growth with your communities, because a lot of you, oh my gosh, I'm sitting here going, wow, we are becoming so advanced. Remember, I remember at one point in our careers, we were looking to American Trails for everything. They have been such a leader and great leader for us. Well, you know what's great about it? We now are leaders too. And we're leaders in so many ways, as you all have just brought forward on the show. We're going to turn over to one of the most fun times is Anne-Marie, take us away to our recognition time in our show.
Actually, we've got our poll questions next, but what I want to do first really quick.
Poll questions. Sorry about that. I'm already to the other part.
It's okay. It's all good. A couple of really interesting comments from the audience. Donna, who's one of our viewers up in BC, says that, they have snow issues and avalanche safety and things like that to worry about in their forested and mountainous areas. And they have an education app for educating the public on use of trails in wilderness areas so that they can take those different considerations for safety into effect. So that's a fabulous idea. And then another really interesting note from Patricia, who said when she worked in upstate New York addressing bringing people into the trails, she utilized college students who were studying outdoor education, leading small groups along the rail trail and introducing them to the beauty and to the great exercise. So a couple of really fun and great ideas.
And Marie, that is actually one of the things that I have on my wish list to do is really create a docent type of program.
Yes.
Somebody at the trailhead on Saturday mornings from 10 to noon or something, that for those people who are really not knowing what's in there, that they can talk through that to somebody versus just an app.
Absolutely. Yep. Great idea. All right. So we've got a couple of quick polls questions for our audience. And again, this is where we get ideas and things. We want to get your take on things. So what we'd like is your answer to this one. Which of the following COVID-driven initiatives will you continue or start even after the pandemic is over? Virtual public events, downloadable activities or kits, sanitation stations in your parks, expanded services for the elderly, expanded meal programs, childcare programs, increased freestanding playground equipment, extended trail or path hours, mental health and well-being programs, or outdoor learning spaces, or free Wi-Fi to help with outdoor learning. So vote on all of those that you think that you will either continue or start if you don't do them yet. I know with all of our resources, sometimes it's difficult to start the things that you want to start. But we've got a lot of people voting, so we'll give you just about 5 more seconds here to consider those answers. This is a multiple choice one, so give you a couple more minutes so that you can consider all the answers and choose the ones that apply. And we're going to quit here in about 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And let's share those results. So virtual public events, interesting that one, even after the pandemic is over, I think that, people are enjoying the opportunity to join virtually. And even, for some folks who maybe can't get out to the parks, that's a great one. Downloadable activities or kits was also very strong. Mental health and well-being programs, a huge need right now. So that's wonderful to see that a lot of folks are continuing to offer that one. Outdoor learning space is another really popular one. So thank you for that. And we have one more quick poll question for everybody to answer today. And that one is, and this is best choice, so vote for one. Which of the following has had the most positive impact on your department as a result of COVID-19? So COVID's been tough, but what's the most positive thing that's come out? Is it diversification of services, increased communication, increased staff training, relationships between staff, closer relationships, creative implementation of programs, marketing, whatever those creatives might be, or increased tech support and or services? So which of those has been the strongest for positive impact on your department? And we see the votes going up, lots of people voting on this one. So it's good to see that there's been a lot of some positivity, right? It's yes. So easy to talk about the negatives, but this is good news. We like to talk about the good news and the good things that people are doing. So we'll give you about 5 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's take a look at what everybody said here. Creative implementation. I would agree with that. Seen a lot of creative things coming out of what everybody's doing. And certainly, from our panel here, from our audience suggestions, from previous shows, it's great to see how everybody's really kind of pivoted their services and thought of new and creative ways to serve communities. So thank you for everybody for taking those. And Jody, we'll get back to you for question number 3, and then we'll do that recognition.
Okay, sorry about that, but I want to get right into the recognition.
All good.
I'll tell you why. Let's go quickly on this question. Right now, we know that the cost recovery model is kind of in a state of flux right now with our budgets. Talk a little bit about the way you all are addressing that. Is there a model? Is there a phasing? How are you looking at that? So what I'd like to do is let's go ahead and Mitch, let's start with you on that. And again, we're kind of running close on time, but give us your opinions.
You got
Chris.
it.
Okay.
So this year is obviously a super unique year. We get a little bit of a buy this year. Okay. Now, our cost recovery model, to answer your question, is we had targeted 45% cost recovery this year. And we're not going to make that on our fiscal year, which ends June 30. However, it's not horrible. We're going to hover somewhere around the 35% cost recovery. Now, partly due because we did pivot, like a lot of us did, and offer some services. Now, however, when we did that, our city commission said, you know what, we're going to do it and we're going to subsidize the whole thing. And we're not going to make people pay for it. Now, because we did that, we applied for CARES Act funding and got reimbursed for the entire program that had started happening in the spring and went all the way through the summer until school began. So that'll help us with the cost recovery. Our big losses this year will be in facility rentals and athletic programming. But we'll be back on target for a 45% for FY22. Now, we accomplished this mostly through appropriately priced activities for your locale and for your area, while we still include subsidies for particular demographics like youth. We subsidize active aging programs, we subsidize, and then still offer scholarships. And then we also gain, and we're gaining some here in this realm after the pandemic through user group agreements and special events at parks. So those user group agreements, you got more people that want to utilize these outdoor spaces for what they do, right? And to offer small scale programming. Well, you want to manage those and because, right, there's an impact to your park and to the area. Not only are you maybe displacing the public from utilizing the facility, the general taxpayer, but there's also a real impact for maintenance. And so there's an area for revenue collection. So that's our model. We'll be back to 45%. We know we're going to be short this year. I think it's understood. We're tracking it. Our finance department will track it heavily and we'll pitch that to the commission and say, hey, this is why. And again, that facility rentals took a big hit. But remember, we did this stuff for the community. While we didn't rent any of those facilities, we partnered with United Way and they used it for childcare and the facilities there. So there's this to the community that we're providing that is tangible, but we're not putting a dollar figure on it as a loss. So we've come together. And again, it helps us provide those critical services. So it's not all about the money. We've got to cost recover, and 45% is where we are. My commission would like to see 50, but we're not quite there yet.
Well, excellent, Chris.
Well, I'm going to probably take a little bit of a detour from this. If you know me and know the Woodlands Township and have heard me speak before, we are very, very centric on cost recovery. Our goals have been since 2007, actually 2009, 100% cost recovery of our operational costs for our recreation division, not capital acquisition. That includes all salaries, and 50% for our aquatics. Somehow, we ended up probably in the 82% last year.
Wow.
I thought was phenomenal.
Yes.
But I think, and aquatics is really, don't even get me started on where aquatics ended up. Just more, everything just really fell apart on that one. But we had 7 of our 14 pools open last year. There's a key word in there, which I believe Mitch said very, very well, maybe even the first question, was agility. You have to have your programs and services be agile. So whether it be a pandemic or user want, desire, and need, that we're not carrying these dead dog type of programs that were, and I know some of these are political, but we've got to get rid of those to get those better programs in there that have higher use and or potentially higher revenue, to be able to generate some revenue so we can have these social service programs that are very, very important in our community. So the use of cost recovery philosophies, planning, and that type of thing is so important for us to be able to have these equity programs from that standpoint. One of the small aspects is really leveraging contracting programs out. So if these programs don't make, they're done. We're not carrying salaries. We're getting rid of things. And we made, get this, last year, even with I think 12 weeks off, we made the same amount of money on tennis that we did in 2019, we did in 2020, yet we had 12 weeks off. And we only have tennis instructors that are on contract. Plans, and really understanding your mix of programming of what are cash cows that are going to be able to drive revenue in to be able to pay for those social equity programs, but also that innovative approach and that creative approach to continually develop programs. And that kind of, and those, the final point that I want to make is our cost recovery goals, and I wrote this down, really push staff to really stay up on the ever-changing needs, wants, and desires of our consumers. So by you having that goal, and you have Mitch and Nasha saying, hey, listen, where are we on a monthly basis? That's putting the pressure on staff to say, what does the community want on a daily, weekly basis?
Right on. Nasha?
Yeah, I actually agree. Both Mitch and Chris made some really great points that I can actually relate to here in Greensboro, where we've moved more towards outcome-based management. So we're emphasizing not only the service delivery, but the benefit to the community, and then having how to figure out how to balance that with accessibility and affordability to continue to remain sustainable and equitable. So the reality, though, is that our pricing model here in Greensboro is actually well below our fair market value in a lot of our different program areas. That does allow us to continue to provide programming that many residents otherwise would not be able to access due to the higher pricing in the community for other providers. So for this year right now, our revenue recovery for costs, it still remains to be seen. Our city's financial position is still a little bit in a gray area, probably like most places. Sales taxes and property taxes here in Greensboro have actually remained relatively stable for us, but we do know that our hotel motel sales tax, for example, they've taken a huge hit.
Yes.
And that is going to significantly impact the general operating budget for the city. So we're going through our budget preparation process right now. And so that kind of still is a little bit remains to be seen. But beyond that, one thing that we've already have been implementing for a few years now is a program planning process that has guidelines that our staff uses. And we evaluate the planning, marketing, pricing, implementing the evaluation of anything that we do and we offer, whether it's in-house or whether it's facilitated by the department. And that allows us to prioritize kind of and emphasize on a broader scale what that economic value creation opportunity is for the department. We can also look at analysis of expected and final actual costs, what that return on investment is going to be, the cost recovery, the benefit analysis. And to Chris's point, we could eventually determine, does this program actually meet the need of this community, or do we need to reallocate those resources to things that may better serve, what our mission is or what the community desires. So from a broader standpoint, again, even looking at the public-private partnerships, the contractual agreements that we have with outside providers that operate facilities on our behalf, we've been establishing some return on investment metrics in tandem with the public spending that we do have available to evaluate that cost recovery. And really quickly, about 2 years ago, which time flies, we adopted our plan to play, our 20-year comprehensive master plan. So that actually included some recommendations and strategies to help us better define what our actual cost recovery goals would be and what they are, to ensure that we're balancing subsidies, which we do provide for a lot of our programs, and pricing levels to reflect the marketplace. And so one of our priorities for this year in 2021 is to take a deeper dive into evaluating what those goals for revenue and cost recovery might be. and then work towards establishing some more specific targets while also evaluating how our facilities are used, how our program registration fees are established, the structures, so that way we can meet those specific goals. So this is really going to be a reflection period for us. I think that's one of the reasons why I say the pandemic has actually been a blessing, because it's given us the opportunity to take a pause and
That's
allow
right.
us some time to take a deeper dive and a look.
Jody, one more comment on that. I think we have to realize that the folks on this panel and the 109 people that are on the call here need to realize that there's not going to be this gravy train of money coming to us in the next year, 5 years, or whatever. Money's going to get even more tighter. And some of the things that I've been saying have been, I can see, for example, that there's going to be more money potentially allocated towards public health issues.
Yes.
Not a preparation for the next pandemic. And so that's going to draw money away from us. And so by really embracing cost recovery philosophies, mentalities, those types of things, and really learning those types of systems will help better position you in the future, because the money will be tighter.
Yeah, you're hitting it right on. And again, pause is good, pause, reflection, and recalibration. It's not going to hurt any of us at all. And I do think we're going to be a lot stronger in the end, but you're right on, Chris. Thank you so much for that. Hey, great, you guys. Thank you for your responses. Now let's try this again. I'm going to hand it over to you, Anne Marie, for our recognition.
Okay, all right, very good. So this is one of the most enjoyable. We absolutely love being able to do this with our teams and have everybody get this started. There we go. We call this Good News in Parks About Great People. And we are so excited because this really gives our panel the opportunity to share about the people that they work with. So we want them to take a couple of minutes each to recognize a person or a team that they work with for their efforts. So we're going to go ahead and get started with you, Chris.
Well, this is my team that I'm very, very privileged to lead. This was a photo probably about a month after we received the gold medal in 2019. Our assistant general manager threw a party for our entire Parks and Recreation department. So this is probably about, half of our full-time folks. And I am very blessed to have two very, very strong assistant directors and 8 division managers that really help with that day-to-day. We do everything from parks, recreation, aquatic special events. We have a town center division, 2 different park ranger units that cover 150 parks, 200 miles of pathways, 15 swimming pools, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's these guys, and especially there's some guys out there that are wearing their yellow shirts or gold shirts that are operational folks who really keep the parks clean, who are doing their due diligence to just make this system as best as possible. And I'm personally very, very appreciative of all their work that they do.
That's awesome. So do they wear these shirts kind of in their day to day, or was this something special for the gold?
This was something special, and we have a staff uniform, and sometimes these do pop out every now and again.
Awesome. Great looking team, and thank you for everything that you do, Woodlands Township team. All right, let's move to Mitch.
Okay, wow, this is a kind of a rough photo here, but it's indicative of the times, isn't it?
It absolutely is. Yeah.
Okay, so now listen, Chris is spot on, man. I mean, it takes a village, and it's the whole organization, and it really is. But I wanted to take a minute to call out my core leadership team that I work with to lead the different divisions throughout the department. And so this is obviously just a picture from a cell phone from one of our weekly leadership team meetings. And I'm going to go around the horn here, starting at my upper left. Addie Jaden is our planning and development manager. As you guys have mentioned, we're an extremely fast growing community, the fastest growing in the country of our size. So she's incredibly busy and a very talented planner, and leads that division for us. An immense amount of work there, but just fantastic. Over to the other side of myself is Elizabeth Hill. She's our aquatics manager. She is the state liaison for aquatics. I think she's just fantastic. The whole state looks to her for best practices. And we have the only indoor 50-meter pool in the state, so it's extremely busy. Aquatics has been very important to the community during this time. Our pools, we have been able to keep them open, and not everybody in the state's been able to do that. We try to keep it that way. Next down the line below Addie is Tom White. He's our park and cemetery superintendent. Parks, as we've mentioned, are growing extremely fast. We've recently passed a Parks and Trails district, removing our department from the general fund and assuming maintenance responsibility for 33 additional parks. He's leading that charge right now. It's a major effort. And cemetery's got its additional really cool projects going on. And great guidance there. In the middle is Jamie Seda. She's our recreation manager and is on our state board of directors, is the membership chair there for our state organization. Really a recreation professional, very creative, just what you need in that division, and really sets a very high bar and a very high standard for the services that we deliver and builds that trust in our community. Next, adjacent to her is Kelly Jazjeski, and Kelly is the lead for our administrative assistants. Sorry, I blocked. There we are. I'm back. And those admin assistants don't always get the due that they deserve. They are often, very often, the first interaction that the public gets with our department. And she is just fantastic and sets a high bar, understands the services that we offer and deliver and the importance of them to the community. And then finally, on the bottom, the part of our leadership team is Alex Nordquist, and he manages our forestry division. He is the Montana director for the Rocky Mountain chapter of the International Society of Arboriculture, and has really elevated our standard, inventoried every single one of our trees in the city, over 25,000 trees, everything from diameter, breast height to species and health. And it's just really taking it to the next level. Phenomenal team. I'm super proud of them. And of course, all of their divisions and the people that they manage. But it's a lot of fun, and I'm proud to be associated with them.
Well, that's amazing. And Addie, Elizabeth, Tom, and Jamie, and Kelly, and Alex, from all of us at City Parks, we thank you also for everything that you do. All right, Nasha, tell us about your team.
So, as my mom used to tell my brothers and I, we were all her favorites for different reasons. And even though I knew it was me, for different reasons that prevent me from being able to select just one individual, because everyone that's in this picture makes our department phenomenal. I wanted to recognize our entire Greensboro Parks and Recreation team for their hard work and dedication, particularly as we continue to navigate through this pandemic and reopening and everything else happening. Our team has pivoted so much just this past year with being absolute professionals. They've, with empathy, creativity, they prioritize the health and safety of not only each other, but also the community in mind. And so I am absolutely grateful for that. Even prior to COVID, we hit the ground running and have made so many impactful changes and phenomenal work in our community. We've created new ways to deliver programs and services virtually. We refocused our approach to how we maintain our parks and facilities and keeping up with the increased demand in the visits, at our gardens, our golf trails, courses, and lakes, and things like that. We broke ground and we completed construction on a number of very innovative and unique projects that really demonstrate our commitment to equity and access for all. We've made our partnerships and our connections with our community and our residents stronger through engagement efforts. We've done some unique and targeted marketing, things that they are much more smarter than me with coming up with. But we've even raised more awareness about who we are, which has resulted in national recognition, such as the 2020 Gold Medal Award, as well as increased philanthropic support for what we do. And so for that, I wanted to recognize everyone that is a part of the Greensboro Parks and Recreation team for all their efforts, for going above and beyond, and for showing up to give the very best that they can give every single day. Because as you all know, your very best looks different every day, right? So the very, very best that they can give every day that helps not only make our community better, but it actually makes our profession better.
That is absolutely awesome. And you know, I think people don't necessarily always realize that, you know, there are so many things that people are doing that are out of the norm, right? Out of the from you know, making sure people are wearing masks to answering, you know, new kinds of questions that they've never had to answer before. And I think it's just so amazing to be able to see everything that everybody's doing. So thank you so much for that. We are just about out of time. I want to thank our panel for going in and answering questions throughout the show,
great.
because I'll tell you, we would not have gotten to as many as we did without you. So thank you for that. And I want to go ahead and share just some information about our next show. And wow, Jody, this is a whopper. We have a special edition. You know, you talked about forecasting and trends at the beginning. We're going to do a show on it, January 28th. And, you know, we've got Jane Miller from World Urban Parks joining us, Jonathan Vlaming, who is the liaison to the National Association of County Officials for the NACPRO Board of Directors. And, you know, Christine Stratton, I mean, how's that for a rock star? She's the president and CEO of NRPA. And we are so excited about this show. So you can see the registration link there, playcore.com/season2. We made it super easy for you guys to find it. You can sign up for this one. You can sign up for all of the episodes, but we really look forward to hosting that one in just a couple of weeks. And gosh, Jody, take us out.
Hey, make sure you get this information out to your friends and colleagues. You're doing them a big favor, as you saw today. As I said earlier, we have a lot to cover. So we have a lot more to come. We've got the whole set of shows for the whole year. Anne Marie, great job. But I got to tell you, heart and soul of this show is these three panelists and others that we will have. Great job, you guys. Thank you for being a part of it. We are definitely going to move forward in a great 2021.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.